Hi everyone, it's Kim. Thanks for joining me. Previously, we looked at days 1 through 6 of Spellbinders 2025 edition of the 12 Days of Stitchmas, and today we are going to look at days 7 through 12. I know not everybody is into stitching, so once again, we'll look at all of the die sets stitched with gems and then just contrasting paper. So I'm actually going to start with day 8 and then we'll hop back to day 7. But day 8 is this knitted hat and the snow day banner down here at the bottom. And I used this stitched one on a tag. It's a perfect size. This is a small tag. I'm using Karen Berniston's topper tags. I'll show you that die set in a minute. Any die set works for your tags. That's just what I had sitting on my desk. The holly leaves here are from another day. That's day 9, and we're going to take a look at that. But I mixed and matched between the die sets in this 12 days of Stitchmas. So very simple. There is a separate band. Then we have the cap base and then the pom-pom separate. So you can do whatever you want as far as stitching, but there are little embossed lines that kind of give you some direction on how to stitch. And then you can do whatever you want. You don't have to stay with those lines. Snow day, I think, is kind of hard to see here on the camera. We'll take a look at another one. But that banner can be used with whatever you want. You don't have to just keep it with the hat. So let's look at another tag. This time I jeweled everything. So if I don't want to stitch it, I can just put the jewels on it. And depending on the cardstock you use, like this one is textured, so I don't see those embossed lines on it. So if I want to do something like the jewels and I don't want those embossed lines, they're very subtle. But, you can just change out the cardstock, put something more textured on it, and that will pretty much eliminate any embossed lines for where to stitch. And then you see Snow Day again there, a little better on this one. And then finally, I just did it with contrasting colors for the cardstock. So there's the hat. And this time, I have all the holes open on the band, on the cap, and on the pom-pom. And you might think, ooh, that's a little too much. So in this die set, there is a solid background for the band and the pom-pom. So say you don't want all those holes showing, you could easily just cut out the solid piece. And I'm just going to put this on top. But if you wanted the solid ones, just don't cut out the layer with the holes in it. But this gives you another little look, fewer holes. And maybe you like that look a little bit better. And then the leaves again, we're going to look at here in just a minute. Those are from day 9. And then if you want one other little variation of this, say you like the holes on the band and the pom-pom, but maybe not on the hat. Maybe you have some kind of cardstock where the image is the highlight of your cap. So there is a solid back for the cap as well. I can cut that out without any holes. And then I could either stitch this, put gems on it, or leave it just like this to make another style of hat. So some different variations we can do with the hat. As far as the tag that I used, that's the topper tags from Karen Berniston. This has been on my desk, so I just keep using this over and over for all of the tags I'm doing right now, but any tag die would work. And then for the snowflake, again, I know there's a million big snowflakes out there. The one I had handy is this older one from Tim Holtz. This is Stunning Snowflake, and it was just a nice large size. And there's actually 2 layers to this, and I only used one because it's on the back. So again, look through your cardstock. It doesn't all have to be holiday related. This is probably who knows from what collection, but it doesn't scream holiday, but it works with the colors for my hat and with the snowflake. So that is day 8, the knitted hat and the snow day banner. So let's go back to day 7. And it'll say Fala on the little folder in the dies for the dies when you open up that day. There's 3 dies to this, F, A, and L, and then you can cut the A 3 times and the L 2 times for fa la la. You can do whatever you want there. Again, we're going to take a look at these leaves, I promise, here in just a minute. When I was going through my scraps, I had this background die from Wendy Vecchi, and I didn't pull out a stencil set. And I'm just going to show you the piece. This was in my kind of reject pile. I didn't like this big red stripe. But when I was going through looking for a background for Fa La La, I pulled that out and I thought, you know what? That works for this. You know, my recipient isn't ever going to know that this was a reject background. So if you have some things you're like, don't like it, don't throw it away. It worked out perfectly for this. The stitching, even though it looks like a lot of stitching, all those X's, it went really, really fast. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do with Fa La La, but I actually really like that die set, those 3 letters. So I'm going to show you another. Let's look at Fa La La without any gems. So that works good, just contrasting colors. Plus this, I'm going to call it a holiday treat. I don't know if I want to call it a cupcake. I'll just call it a holiday treat. This is day 9, and now you see where I'm getting all the greenery, the leaves and the berries. And that one I did stitch. So we're going to take a look at this one in a couple different ways here. This was very easy to stitch, but again, this isn't limited for just the holidays. Remove the leaves and the berries, and you probably have a pretty good cupcake if you need a birthday card. And again, we'll look at it without the stitching. But I did like how the Fa La La and the cupcake went together. So the cupcake is day 9, Fa La La day 7. And let's look at one more cupcake here, or the second cupcake. Now, I put this one in a vellum envelope, so like for a gift card, and I kind of like how it looks. You can kind of see it through that envelope. So let me open it up. I just put this on a plain card. There's my vellum envelope, and then this would be a gift card. And this time I've used the gems and kind of add a little bling to that. So we've got 2 versions of the cupcake there, stitched and blinged. And for my little envelope, again, I know there's different envelopes out there. This is from one of Tim's, I believe this is Postal. I can't remember now if he has a vault set with this envelope as well, but it's just perfect for a gift card size. And, if you have another one for gift cards, other little envelopes, it will work in vellum as well. Okay, so now I know I'm kind of popping around here because I use some of these with, I combine different days. So let's do Let It Snow. This is day 10. It has the Let It Snow sentiment plus an ornament, which includes, the ornament and the little bow and the ornament holder there. Now this one, there's one ornament die, but I cut it out 3 times and I did my stitched version, my gemmed version, and just my contrasting color all on the same. And I made it like a mini slimline card. Now, when you see it in the kit, it has I think it's Let It Snow this way, and this ornament's hanging off the big T with just one ornament. So there's several, different ways you can do this, but the colors worked, so I thought I'm going to do it that way. My little snowflake here was from day 6 with the bear. I had some extras laying around, so I thought I'll just use those. But again, you don't have to do 3 ornaments. You can just do 1, whatever style you like. This one is super simple, and there was another ornament, and I couldn't tell you exactly what day. It might have been day 1. So, you might want to combine those ornaments. One was bigger. This is a smaller ornament. So again, just whatever strikes your fancy. Now, I used the ornaments again, and I used Fa La La again. So this time, here is the gemmed up Fa La La. And I used, instead of solid cardstock, I used printed cardstock. And this one just kind of came together because I had these cut out, and I thought, oh, all those colors work together. So let me just use them together. So if we go back and look at Fa La La, which is again day 7, we've got our stitched, our beaded, and then just our plain Fa La La. So really, this one was Fa La La was pretty easy, and I kind of love this color combination, and this was somewhat unexpected just to use all those different pieces together. So this is day 7 and day 10. The ornaments are from day 10 with the Let It Snow sentiment. And then day 11 were these owls. And I will say, I was surprised when I saw this, very pleasantly surprised, because the first thing I thought is, wow, I can use this one year round, and I will be using it year round. And I was like, I wish I had this when Halloween was here. But again, I put all 3 together because they just work together. So we have our stitched, our gemmed, and then just our contrasting colors. A couple things on this. So if you wanted to use it for another holiday, just omit that little cap. And then there is one little thing I want to talk about on the eyes. So when you look at the diagram in the packaging, the eyes are like this, like they're closed. And that comes from, this is the fallout piece. So like this is the fallout piece for kind of our yellow, our golden owl, and this centerpiece pops out, and I just, instead of turning around and die cutting it out of black, I just took a black marker and colored that in and put that down. Now this guy's eyes, these little circles are actually made to go under his eyes. You might see that little embossed line there. I don't know if you can see that. Maybe we could see it better on this one. It's kind of hard because of the cardstock. But there's a little bitty, like half circle embossed. That's where those lines, where this little circle is meant to go. But I didn't really like that. It's sort of like, I guess, cheeks or something. So I thought I'm going to use that for open eyes and this one for closed eyes. And then on my third one here, where I just used contrasting colors, this was just a scrap that I had embossed, and it was just sitting in my paper stash. I couldn't even tell you the embossing folder. So when I die cut these eyes and I pop this little piece out, this is the back of this cardstock. The other thing, when I die cut my owl out, because this was already embossed and it's textured, I can't really see the embossed line for like the placement of this piece here for his tummy. I really can't see that. So I thought, I don't have to put this piece on here if I don't want. So I elected not to do that, just to give it a little different look. And this is a different cardstock, but it's so close to this color. But I was still okay with that, even though there isn't a different color really showing through on his wings. So I was very pleased with the owl, and I know I'll be using this year round. And these little berries and the leaves are again from the holiday treat or the cupcake from day 9. I just added those on for a little extra decoration for this card front. And then finally, our last day, day 12, is the Nutcracker. And he by far had the most pieces. And I think there were 19 dies for this guy. And at first I was like, okay, I had to lay it out. It took me a minute to figure out what went with what. I went back and referred to the picture again. I always kind of get thrown by, like, there's a solid piece that is the background to his face, and it's, this shape, but I always think, oh, that's part of his hat. It took me a few minutes to figure this one out. And there's this little teeny tiny piece for the legs. We always think, oh, those legs will be nice and long. Well, the legs are about from here to here, and these 2 pieces are on one die set. So just take your time, go refer back to the picture, or get online and look at some samples. There's people putting it together, so that might help you out. And then just real quick, here is our little holiday tree cupcake thing again. This time there are it's nothing. It's just contrasting paper. And I really like the look of that. That was very simple. And I especially like it. I use like the vellum for the frosting up here. So I would definitely use this one without any stitching. I love all the variations, but this is super simple. This guy, yeah, a little more to him, but once you figure out the pieces, he's pretty easy to die cut out. One thing about when you stitch it, if you use, like, I'm going to say regular embossing thread, it has some, I'm going to say, like, texture to it or grit or something. So you can pull it taut and it stays taut. When you use this metallic thread, I love the look at it, but I get kind of frustrated because it's hard to keep it taut. It's kind of slick and does its own thing. So one thing I was thinking about, what could I do to make that more taut when I stitch? So when I get done, it's not like kind of all different tensions. So what I started doing is put a piece of double-sided tape. If you had a piece of cardstock with tape on the back, you could die cut it out, and this whole back could be sticky, and that's fine. But I just want to show you real quickly. Here's my metallic thread or a metallic embossing floss, whatever you've got, or not embossing floss, embroidery floss. I stick the one end down. Now, on any of my dies or any of the die cuts that I use embroidery thread on, not embossing thread, embroidery thread, I'm a gluer. I don't just trust the tape. So when I do any of these other pieces here, like for this, I will glue the one end down when I start, do all the stitching, and then, glue the other end down. And then after it dries, I'll come back and trim it off. So even though I have tape on this, when I am all done, I am going to glue both ends down. So if I have this and then I do my stitching on the front and I come through with the last, and I'm just going to, let's just say this comes up like this. And this one's kind of splitting, which happens with this. I'm going to lay it back down on the tape. And as I go through these holes, I can push it back down on the sticky tape. And that's what keeps it smoother on the front. When I am done, I still take glue. I am a gluer, not just a taper, because I don't want to do all this work and then have these stitches come out. And then I'm just going to put a little bit of glue. I'm going to let that dry. And after it's dry, I will trim off the ends here. I'll take my little sharp scissors, trim those ends off, and then I don't have to worry about those ends coming loose. And then, over time, that thread works out. So if you like the metallic, put some kind of tape, because the glue, it holds one end, but then when I cross back and forth on the back here as I'm stitching, I can press that thread in there. And I only do this for the metallic thread, not the regular embroidery thread that's like cotton, just the metallic, because it moves all over the place. And I just have found that easier to control it, and I'm happier with the outcome at the end. So let's take a look at this guy. Before we do that, happy birthday. Again, just pull out the old sentiment dies. This is from Spellbinders, Happy Occasion Words. I've had this for quite a while, but I love how I can make a bunch of different combinations for a number of occasions. So let's take a look at this guy, Gemmed, our nutcracker with just gems. He's pretty easy to do. So basically it's his like cummerbund, the top of his hat, the brim of his hat, and then the front here of his uniform and the boots. The boots I did in black, so they aren't quite so shiny. But by now I got rolling on this. The other thing, all these pieces here, the eyebrows, the eyes, and the mustache drop out of the face when you cut it. I did save those little mustaches because you just never know when you might need a mustache. And then there's a solid piece for the background of the face. And then there's another one for the little hair on the side. Now, because he was blonde, I really didn't want blonde, like closed eyes. So before I glued that background piece on, I matched it up to the front, took a pencil and lightly marked it. And then I just kind of colored in a little over that line. So when I put this on, the eyes all look black. Since this guy was a brunette, I thought his eyes looked okay, but I didn't want like yellow closed eyes. So I just did that. Or you could take that dropout piece, color it in black, and stick it back in there, whatever you find easiest to do. There's the berries and the leaves again from the holiday treat die on day 9. And then I thought I need to get some different kind of backgrounds going here. So this is an older die, Elegant Twist Ovals from Spellbinders, a nesting die. There was a period of time when they had a bunch of different decorative nesting dies come out. So just search your stash, see what you've got. So there's 2 of them. And then finally, the guy with just contrasting paper. Now, what I did for him, and I probably wouldn't do this in the future, but I thought I'm going to try it out. You can see the contrasting color in all of the stitch pieces, but there's also those lines for how to stitch this that, they're pretty light. So you can't really see them on this guy, but I thought, oh, I'm going to take a pen and draw those in. Yeah, I'm not sure that I like that. I probably will omit that next time and just let it be plain like this guy, no drawn in lines and just the open holes. So again, personal preference. I don't know that I like that, but you can see what it looks like with just the paper. Since he's a redhead, I did the same thing with the eyes. I colored them in on the background piece here so that they would be black rather than just red eyes. For me, that looked better. And then I put it on the skinny tag because as I was cutting out my happy holiday words here, when I turn this over, it has a skinny little tag. And I thought, oh, that might be perfect for this guy. And he barely fits on there, but it works. So a different shaped tag for a really tall and skinny nutcracker. So that is the 12 days of Stitchmas. I always am kind of sad when I get to the end of it and I'm like, oh, went through it. Now I can use it. Some of these I'll definitely be using for my holiday cards. And I've got to, Thanksgiving will be here soon. I'm going to be at the deadline where I've got to figure out what I'm going to do. But even though I'm sad to get to the end of the 12 days, I have one more thing from Spellbinders to look forward to, December 1st, and that's the Crafty Advent Calendar where we have 24 days of either dies, stamps, embossing folders, and stencils that are in this. So I cannot wait till December 1st just so I can start opening the Crafty Advent Calendar from Spellbinders. But until then, I need to think about my holiday cards and how I can use some of these Stitchmas dies to get started on those. So thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you again in a future video.